What a cap does is it makes the most deserving cases less valuable. Because a cap, these caps are caps on non-economic damages, and no one is hitting up against the cap in a case that's a marginal case. The cap is about taking money away from the most deserving people. And so what a cap does is it's a way of transferring money, if you think about it. A cap transfers money from this deserving person who's been badly injured and puts it in the pocket of the hospitals and the doctors. A cap says to a doctor that the patient's life isn't as valuable as the legal system otherwise would say, or as people would say. After all, the caps are put on to keep juries from awarding damages that they determine to be the right amount of money to compensate for this mistake. So a cap says that these plaintiffs are not valuable human beings. And then secondly, it also says to the hospital or to the doctor that you don't have to have responsibility for your actions. You know, people have done research on this, and caps are discriminatory. Caps affect women more than men. Caps affect children more than other people. Caps affect the elderly more than other people. And also caps will disproportionately impact the ability of someone who makes less money, who doesn't fit into one of those categories. It affects their ability to get a lawyer, because the lawyer knows that the lost wages of that person are going to be less. And caps don't affect lost wages, and they don't affect health care costs. What they affect is the pain and suffering, loss of enjoyment of life, those other things that go to compensate people for the deprivation of their dignity. One, the idea that medical malpractice caps will lower the cost of health care is absolutely not borne out. I mean, that medical liability insurance costs are such a small percentage of our huge health care budget in America that it doesn't have any impact on that. It's a rounding error. It's the hair on the tip of the tail of the dog of the costs of health care. But if we think about what are the costs of medical errors, that medical liability reform doesn't reduce those costs, because those costs are borne by the people who are injured, and which are then shifted to the public hospital if they're not able to collect, or shifted to the school system if there's a child that needs extra treatment and the family doesn't have the money for it, shifted to families and neighbors and communities. And the costs don't go away. We can't wave a magic wand and make the costs of medical injury go away. If anything, I think that medical liability caps increase those costs, because when hospitals, especially, and also doctors, are not fully responsible for what they're going to do, they're going to be less safe. And that's going to mean more injuries, which means more costs of medical mistakes. The real problem is that there's too much medical injuries, and that not enough people who are eligible for bringing a malpractice lawsuit bring them. So if we wanted to have reform that was going to address the real problem rather than the myth, there would be two parts to it. One, we would require more disclosure, and we would back that up with a serious auditing and other kind of sanction. The second thing is that we'd make it easier for people to bring a lawsuit, not harder. We would not cap damages. We would not set up 3 different hurdles that someone has to jump over in order to get to the courthouse. We would make it easier for people to bring a lawsuit, because that's what they're entitled to do under our legal system.